So it's time I threw my hat into the ring with this whole React trend that we've been seeing for the last several years. You saw the title, you clicked the video. I've been around forklifts for several years now, and I even built a Princeton piggyback to scale in Maya a couple years ago. I've seen enough forklifts in video games by this point, and I'll tell you what, I got some things to say. So here we go. So the first Outer Worlds game, this one had an interesting front loader that caught my eye for sure. First thing that stands out, the forks. The overall thickness or the height of the actual forks itself might be a little tricky to get into pallets. Sometimes you can have forks that are a little bit skewed depending on how used they are. So one would be higher than the other or like lower. And that's just a pain in the butt to use a forklift like that, especially if you're trying to get to shelves and stuff like that. Another thing that stands out to me here is this little gear mechanism guy. You don't want something like this exposed to the elements. Typically, it should be covered. For instance, here's an example with the Princeton that I built. The gear housing for the back wheel for the steering, this guy is all encased because it's going to be covered in grease and whatnot. You're going to expect to have to swap that out. It's going to get beaten up and rusted and all that good stuff. These lift cylinders here on the sides is just not a good idea because they're exposed. Those things get bumped just a little bit and you start to risk bending the chrome rod. If those things get dinged just a little bit, you got to basically swap out the whole rod, or you end up getting an internal leak. And so there's a seal on the inside of the cylinder that basically separates the hydraulic fluid for retracting and extending the cylinder. Once you bend that rod, you risk having a leak. And so all it takes is one little bump, and that cylinder is going to have to be taken apart. It's going to have to be resealed, probably a new chrome rod. And in some cases, it's even cheaper to just get a whole new cylinder. It's kind of funny, actually. If you look real close, these chrome rods are actually slightly bent. So yeah, not good. So I just so happen to have a souvenir. This is a chrome rod for a carriage cylinder on the Princeton forklifts, the ones that push the carriage out. There's two of them, one on each side. You can see here though, I don't know how this happened, but you can see the chrome rod section here extending to the end, and you can see how it got bent real bad. I mean, you have something like that happen, and you basically have to buy a whole new cylinder. They were going to throw this away. I've been holding on to this for a little while for this exact purpose.
The stories tell of a golden age long ago when our civilization spanned the system. It was a bright and hopeful time, but it didn't last.
Yeah, it didn't last because your guys' forklifts are dog water. I mean, where do we even begin? Look at this thing. I have a lot to say about this guy. You can talk about having some golden age in Destiny, but the forklift stayed the same. The Traveler didn't bless humanity with better forklifts. All right, well, look at the seat. I mean, yeah, it's probably been scavenged by the Fallen or whatever, but seat I already don't like. Look at this spot right here. Just if you're getting in a forklift like constantly throughout the day, if you're getting in and out of a forklift, this section here would just be a pain to get your leg over. That would be just annoying after the 20th time. There's no control valves. Now I get it. You want to have a efficient model, save on poly count wherever you can. Your wheels, the front wheels are usually bigger in diameter to avoid like tipping and just counterweight in general. The counterweight on this at least looks nice. You could probably suspect this forklift probably weighs somewhere in the realm of 7,000 to 9,000 pounds. Probably rated for 3,500 pounds or somewhere in that area to lift. The headlights, not too bad. A lot of times with your headlights, they'll be on the cage and they'll be like slightly hitting your mast rails. And so that's kind of, it's not a huge deal, but more light and obviously better. But the hose lines for the cylinders that are running up and down here, you wouldn't have them all tangled like this because these need to be able to move. When the inner mast goes up, when you raise the forks, this one probably goes up to 10, 12 feet. It has a taller mast because you can tell most forklifts, look at them in games, typically the overhead guard is at the same height, this cage right there, the top of the cage. Typically, that's at the mast will reach the same height. So this is a little bit taller of a mast. You can probably reach 14 feet high ish. But yeah, when the mast goes up, you got the side shift cylinder somewhere in here that clearly is not part of this specific forklift. Um, you need that hose length. You need these hoses for the hydraulics. You need the hoses that can run long enough and go all the way up there. What is going on with our mast chain? So this mast chain right here, going over the little rollers right there. Yeah, it's not supposed to go through that. That's yeah, that looks really really sketchy. So if everything I've already said wasn't enough, I mean that right there is a deal breaker. I wouldn't want to use this forklift. Additionally, the overhead guard, if you're going to have this overhead guard shield or whatever you want to call it, it's nice for the rain, but if you're indoors and you got to reach up to higher shelves, imagine sitting in this forklift and you're raising your forks up and you got to see to make sure the forks are going into the pallet. You're going to have to be awkwardly leaning out to the left or the right, doing like, you're doing like this motion where you're like, trying to look up and dude, it's just a pain. It's a pain in the butt. Goodness gracious. At least it's got a step. That's nice, but that's probably going to get hit. You're probably going to scrape stuff. That's going to get dinged and damaged. The forks are a little shorter than I would like. Again, short for how hard is it to model short or longer forks on a forklift? It's not that hard. Oh, goodness. That's about all I have to say about the forklifts. Great, now I can uninstall this game again. So the forklift in Exoprimal, definitely refreshing to see after seeing all these just cats, Toyotas, Kubotas, whatever you want to call them, the typical, stereotypical forklift. First things first, the forks. You know what I'm going to say? Forks aren't long enough. Oh well. It's nice to have forklifts like this. If you're at a place that uses a lot of forklifts, what happens when one breaks down and you need to move it, right? Those typical cats, they can't lift another forklift. So having a Lift King like this is definitely nice. What I really like is the counterweight on the back. There's a lot of weight back there. This guy, typically a forklift like this, with a frame like this, you're probably looking at being able to lift roughly 16 to 20,000 pounds, which most cats, Toyotas, like I said, 7,000, 8,000 pounds ish. So it's really nice to have one of these for when a forklift breaks down. It's a really small detail, but you can see the air filter right there. That I thought that was really neat. And usually when you have an air filter right there, that pretty much means that the engine's going to be right below it. For a game that has so many dinosaurs that need to be drawn on screen at once, it's actually kind of surprising to see a forklift model like this have so many little details like this. What's nice about the Lift Kings, they will have another valve on them that your smaller forklifts usually don't have. They call it a positioner valve. What the positioner cylinder does is it lets you, with a simple valve control, what it lets you do is basically take your forks and basically do this, right? Pushing the valve up or down one way makes them go out versus inward, and that's just really nice to have because these forks, they're an absolute pain to pull the pin and try and move them like manually. It's just a pain in the butt. It's pretty easy to do with the smaller forklifts, but that's a really nice one to have. So nice little attention to detail there. You guys knew this was coming. Halo has a lot of forklifts. We're gonna run through all of them at once. Okay, here we go. This one kind of looks like or at least reminds me of a Bobcat. I've never driven a Bobcat. We had one at a previous job, but I never had the opportunity. We are not going to talk about this. You know what I'm gonna say. So, moving on. The pallet. What's interesting in this game? The pallet is typical. I think the typical average shipping pallet's 48 by 40 inches. This one's a little bit different, but regardless, if you're going to make a pallet in your game and have forks, they should be long enough to pick up the pallet. This, what would happen depending on your load size and how much you're carrying, you could basically snap the pallet and stuff falls apart. That has happened to me. It really stinks. So going back to the forklift though, there's no evidence of hydraulic cylinders here, and you'll see the one in Reach. The one in Reach has some lift cylinders here. Obviously, they were able to afford a little bit higher poly count in Halo Reach. Wheels don't look too bad. The front wheels are bigger than the back ones. That's important. There is a lot of counterweight back here, which is good. This guy could probably handle a good 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 pounds. I'm not really entirely sure. Again, we don't know what the UNSC is, what kind of metal or steel that they're using in the future, but looks like it has a solid amount of counterweight on the back, so that's definitely important. And from this model itself, we can only really assume that it has just one valve, being the lift, and so something like this would be greatly used as like a front loader, or what you can also do with Bobcats is put a big bucket on the front. It's great for moving dirt and even moving snow if you get a lot of snow. I'm not a huge fan of the netting. I mean, if you need to reach up high and you need to look, you're not leaning out the side of the cage, so that's nice. But if you're going outside, you're still gonna get rained on. It's really strange. They have glass there too, on one side and whatnot. These lights, probably not the best idea to have them on the top of the cage. Any falling objects, they could easily get dinged. Typically, you have on some forklifts, or a lot of forklifts, there'll be a little bit of a cage, a little bit of a frame around the lights to protect them, little guards. It also explodes like a normal forklift would explode, so at least they did a good job there. It's nice to know that it can withstand the weight of an elephant, so it has that going for it. So the forklift on Reach gets quite a little bit of a overhaul here. First thing we're going to look at is the lift cylinders that you don't see in the Halo 3 version. You only have one hydraulic line going to the cylinder. You should have two for both extending and retracting the chrome rod itself, right, for lifting up the forks and then lowering them back down. Kind of strange. I mean, you got what? Reward points. Cool. There's like 20 to 30 polygons here for one like line, and I mean times two because there's one on the other side, but it's just a little funny that would be missed. If you're gonna look up the reference for a cylinder and only have one hydraulic line, kind of funny. I'm not really sure what's going on there. It's got the two control valves this time. It looks like they have a little bit higher poly count as well. The cage is a little bit different. No netting, that's nice, although there is netting on the sides, which is kind of a strange choice, again, but I like the silhouette and that the cage kind of has that angle that that these like lift arms have. It's really strange to have a cage that has no guard whatsoever on top, so you wouldn't want to use this indoors at all. It also looks like the headlights were taken off the cage and instead they're in the front. It looks cool, I'll give them that, but what happens when you're picking up something that is, and then you lift it, and then you have headlights shining on like a crate? What if it's one of these like reflective blocks, and so then you got light shining back in you, and you gotta wear glasses, or you're getting blinded? If it were me, I would have the lights mounted on the side rails right there. Your visibility, it absolutely stinks. You can't really see what like behind you, so that again kind of stinks. Just another reason why you wouldn't want to use these indoors, but hey, it gets bonus points in Reach for being able to drive it. Did you know that Halo 4 has a forklift? What on earth is this interesting looking machine? For one, Spartans are what, 7 feet tall? I don't remember exactly how tall they should be in Halo 4.
I thought you'd be taller.
Not in my town.
For one, look how big this machine is. I mean, are those supposed to be the wheels? All right, fine. You're gonna be lifting on this end. Your front wheels should be bigger. But look at this. Look at these. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? The forks are long enough. 343 Industries did something right. Look at that. Oh no. Oh no. Oh goodness. Oh, almost. Look at the little grooves like that. That's interesting too. If you're gonna have these little concave little like angles, typically both sides of the forks will have that. So it's a little strange that it's just the inside edges. Now with a stand-up lift like this, typically you'd have to have a harness on. Depends on exactly what you're doing, I guess. Well, Technically, probably no, because the ones that you would need a harness for are actually ones that you would lift up. Some people would call them pickers, where you're actually driving around and the whole thing goes up, so you can reach like high shelves and like whatnot. In this case, you would call this a reach truck because based on the design, it just looks like the mast goes up and not the actual section, the cab and the person, the driver, itself. You got 3 valves on one side, and you got 2 valves on the other side. Now, I worked at a place where we had reach trucks. I never drove one, but I have no idea. Even the reach truck that they had there, the valves are only on one side. This implies that you're turning around and going back and forth. And I mean, based on what we have here, really, for a reach truck, you'd probably have you'd have your lift valve, right? And then you might have a side shift valve, maybe a tilt, but even then, that's only 3 valves that you would need. So 3 on one side, 2 on the other. I have no idea what's going on there. One last little detail. What do you think that little blue light thing is for, huh? If you've never worked inside of a warehouse, you might not know what that's for. Now, what that's for, most likely, is it's kind of like a safety thing where if you have corners and you have blind spots and you're driving around turns, what this guy would do is it would shine a light down. It would probably shine the light down right about here-ish. And so the idea is that you're coming around a turn, someone sees the blue light, and it's just a safety thing. Hey, someone's coming around the corner. Now, you would honk too. You'd beep your horn at the same time, but it's one of those little safety features. And therefore, this guy, it should be tilted downward. I don't know, a 7 out of 10 for me. I mean, the forks being the right length after what we've seen so far. The forks being the right length gives it 2 points. Easy. Halo 5's Forklift just seems to be a copy and paste. Well, not entirely, but they do away with the whole cage. So automatically, OSHA violation. You're going to get hit by something. They got 4 valves on one side and 2 valves. Okay. Okay, so we gained an extra valve, I guess, for no apparent reason. I like how they kind of build in the little lift cylinders into the texture there. It almost doesn't look like they could go up that high based on their size. I mean, you really wouldn't be able to go that high at all. So, if not the greatest reach. Forks are the same length. Very happy about that. 343, they're doing good. They're doing good in 2015. Wheels, again, whatever. We already talked about that. And that little blue light thing that we were talking about, now there's 2 of them. Just in case you don't see one, now you see 2 of them shining on the ground for no reason. And it's not they're not tilted down, unfortunately. I'm a little intrigued at what these little hooks would be for. I don't understand. I don't immediately recognize why you would want those. Maybe to just clip onto some kind of specialty designed crate if you were I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But very similar to the Halo 4 forklift. So not terribly much to talk about. I wish I knew why they added an extra valve. You know what it could be? It could be for the actual driving itself, which would be so non-conventional for a forklift like this. Again, if it was a Bobcat, that'd be a different story. But because those are more of like a joystick, as far as I know. So I guess what the idea here is that one valve is forward, the other one's reverse. Maybe, and then you have lift, tilt, side shift, and then maybe your 4th valve is a positioner valve in theory. But machines this small don't typically have positioners to adjust the forks because they're small enough you can just do it by hand. It's not a huge deal. Halo Infinite needs an update. Oh my gosh, shocker. Okay, while we wait, trivia time. Let's say you are driving a forklift and you press down on the gas at the same time as you are operating one of the hydraulic levers. What do you think will happen? The answer is hydraulics move faster. Okay, time for the Halo Infinite one. Here we go. Right off the bat, let's look at the forks. Let's get it over with. I think that they're not quite long enough, but they're not terribly short. So 3 for 3 almost did 3 games in a row with correct fork lengths. What a bummer. They almost did it. The mast chain looks like it's going all the way down to the bottom of the fork board. I don't typically see that. So your fork boards will vary, I guess. But the load backrest, this little piece here that has the little arch, little curves at the ends there, that is there to protect the mast rails. And so that looks really, really nice. I've picked those up before. They're kind of awkward to carry. Moving on, the mast chain runs up to these rollers, which really nice attention to detail on these subdivisions, making sure that they're properly aligned with the mast chain. I basically modeled this myself with the Princeton model, but the chain just stops. It needs to run all the way back down to the other side. So that's a little funny. They kind of screwed up there. Your hose lines for the side shift cylinder, these look really nice. I mean, very clean, and they even have the little brackets that hold them in place. I mean, just great attention to detail, except they stop here. They don't run back down the front to the side shift cylinder, which I guess is okay because guess what? There is no side shift cylinder in here. Furthermore, there's not even a valve for it. This is a deal breaker right here. I wouldn't want to use this forklift. As nice as it looks, you have your lift, that's the first valve, and then you have your tilt, that's the second one. Your third valve it should be, in this case, it would be your side shift cylinder. Side shift cylinders are nice because if you're reaching something or you're not quite aligned and you put your forks in or something is stuck, just having that ability to move left and right a little bit is just really nice to have. Otherwise, you got to back the truck back out and then try and do the turn right and put the forks back in. It's just a waste of time. That right there alone, I mean, I wouldn't want to use this forklift, as nice as it looks otherwise. Man, what a bummer. But moving on, grab handles for when you're getting in and out. That's a nice touch. The lights are mounted in a nice space because your lights wouldn't be hitting the mast rails. I've seen forklifts where the lights are mounted in a position that is fairly close to the mast rails, and so a lot of that light hits the rails and it makes the lights not as effective. The mast rails are also funny too because typically you shouldn't be able to see between them. They should be flush, pretty much almost touching. So that's a little funny. That would kind of mess up with your visibility and being able to just grab stuff. Imagine you're driving, right? And for one, the overhead guard, it's nice if you're outdoors, but now you can't see if you're reaching a high shelf, so you have to lean out the side and look, and that's kind of awkward. But the seat looks nice. Only 2 pedals. You might not notice this if you've never driven one, but gas, brake, and then there should be a clutch. So they're missing a pedal. Propane tank looks nice. Really nice model. Really nice modeling on this propane tank. They even have the little turn valve and the little propane line going through. Propane powered forklifts are nice because you can operate them indoors and not worry about worrying about the emissions. The proportions on the wheels, these back wheels look a little too big, but again, UNSC, and in the future, we have no idea. Maybe they think bigger wheels on the back is a better idea. The counterweight looks a little weak. That's fine. Overall, 6 out of 10. I'm bringing it a point down because of no side shift. But other than that, the rest of the model it is a really well modeled forklift. Just has a few deal breakers. Okay, we can't ignore Starfield. Starfield has one of the most strangest looking forklifts that I've seen in a video game, and it caught me off guard when I was playing the first time, about a year ago, or whenever this game came out. I don't know where to begin. For one, you're standing. Now, that's not uncommon. There are some, what you would call a picker, that would, where you'd be standing on it. There's no guard above you, so if something falls, you're definitely going to get hit. That's a problem. And if you're standing, typically you're going to be kind of fastened in some way. Now, you'd either have a harness or, it would pretty much just be a harness. So what would they do here? I mean, would you have magnetic boots to keep you on this tread plate. I mean, what if it's raining on Mars and it gets slippery? You could slip and fall. There's nothing to hold on to except the actual console, itself. I mean, I have no idea what's going on here. So that's a problem. So what? Magnetic boots, maybe? Maybe they have these little boots on. I mean, I don't know. What happens when you tip over and your whole body gets thrown one way, but you're still locked onto the ground, and then you do something bad to your legs? That wouldn't be fun. Now, one mast cylinder, that's not uncommon. There's Piggybacks, the Moffat brand of Piggybacks. They have a singular mast cylinder, so that's not uncommon because most forklifts have a cylinder on each side of the mast. One mast cylinder is kind of strange when you look at, say, the other one over here, because in theory, the way that they set dressed this environment, they're suggesting that this little forklift picked up this really big crate. Now, if we go back to the other one, you'll see the forks only come out to about here. Hey, Sarah, what's going on? The forks only come out to about here. So it's like maybe they parked this and tried to lift it, but then said nope and just walked away. Went on break, maybe. I have no idea. Yeah, the forks, in my opinion, not long enough. It's always nice to have longer forks. I mean, look at that. That's oh my gosh, Sarah. Now, we also have two wheels on the back with treads. Okay, that means that you're not going to get steering in the back. You typically want forklifts with rear wheel steering. So that would lead me to say, okay, I guess it steers in the front. That doesn't. I'm not a fan of that because of that reason. Operating in tight spaces, you always want to have back wheel steering. There's just so much going on here that it looks cool. By all means, like it looks like a cool forklift. I think it'd be fun for a hot minute, but long term, I would not want to be driving this. Definitely looks cool. Let's see what else. No step plate. I mean, that's kind of strange. You could kind of fall in there. There's no little stirrup step or something like that. Definitely a really cool design. I would love to talk to the artist. Actually, I think it'd be cool to pick the person's brain and see how they landed on this design here. Let's get another look at the console. Very strange looking console. I mean, if you're just trying to like look at what you're picking up, I mean, I'm 6'4". I don't know how tall the person is in Starfield, but the visibility here is just not that great. I mean, you have to like step around to look down and see where your forks are. I mean, that's kind of a pain in the butt. It's something that a lot of people wouldn't think about, but when you're driving a forklift, your visibility between the mast rails and on your left and right sides, I mean, it's kind of important. Now, granted, this is kind of nice. You have a lot of a gap here to be able to see, so that's nice. Yeah, definitely one of the most interesting forklifts I've seen in a video game. So Black Ops 6 has a really nice looking forklift. There's a lot here to talk about. The hose lines that run up the mast, look at those fittings. Very detailed crimp fittings right there. Unfortunately, we can't see much of the fork board. I guess the driver gave up because they couldn't move this container. Maybe they could. I don't know. We'll never know how long the forks are and to see if they made the forks long enough. But that's okay. We got 3 valves. Look at that. That means we got lift, tilt, and side shift. It's interesting seeing some of them positioned in different places. Now, this game takes place in the early 90s, so I'm not sure if that would be a thing back then, but they got a parking brake right here. Really nice parking brake handle. The grab handles, a little cage. It's interesting seeing the lights up top like that, but they have the little metal guards around the lights that I mentioned earlier, so look at that. I would have the lights on the sides for reasons we've already talked about. Beacon lights on top, not terrible. Propane powered, very good. Look at the gauge in here. Very good detail. This might be the best forklift we've seen as far as functionality goes. Got the tilt cylinder coming out there, attaching to the mast. I mean, it's like very solid. I just wish I could see more in here, but I guess I can't. The proportions of the wheels look good. This is like 9 out of 10, guys. I'm not going to lie. 9 out of 10 probably. Very nice. Very good forklift. I really don't have any complaints. You can even see the little rollers inside the masts. That's the inner and then the outer mast. Yeah, they did a really good job with this one. Really solid. 9 out of 10. All right, we're going to squeeze in one last one. Here we go. Stanley Parable. The forks look a little bit like they're on the short side. Not a huge deal. The mast chain looks nice. You can see the chain going up and over the rollers and hooking into where there would be chain anchors here. Those control valves in the back, I've never seen a forklift like that where they go to a valve bank that is in theory to your right and underneath of the seat. That's kind of an interesting thing there. It kind of makes me wonder how you would get to the engine beneath you, because that seat would lift up usually. That's kind of strange. And lastly, you can see the little knob on the steering wheel. That is something that, in my experience, you see mostly on forklifts that are overseas, built over in the UK. This is especially true with the Moffats and the Princetons that I've mentioned before. Those, if I'm not mistaken, they come out of Ireland. And this kind of makes sense because I believe the Stanley Parable was made by people overseas, so it all adds up. Alright, are you guys bored yet? Because I am. That's enough forklifting for now. This is the part of the video where you guys know I tell you to unsubscribe for less content. This could not be more true than ever because I am planning a career change as well as planning on moving soon. So I've decided to step away for a little bit. I probably have a couple more posts I'm going to make later on in the summer or early fall, but other than that, I'm going to be taking some extended time away from uploading YouTube videos just to kind of focus on those two things. So that being said, I will see you guys later.